This is music, and this is all about that two 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 two. Congratulations to Chris from the Green Sabre channel on 200 subs. That's awesome. Congratulations. It's a relatively new channel to me. I only started watching his videos recently, but I really like him. They are informative, they are entertaining, and they are interesting. He does a lot of vinyl community style content. But Green Sabre is also the name of one of the bands that he's in, like a doom metal band. So you also have band updates on his channel, and that's just an extra layer of interesting stuff. So great channel, go and check it out. To celebrate that he has reached 200 subs, he has launched a contest. You got 4 questions. Each question has 2 parts to it. So the first question is show 2 albums that shaped your taste in music. The second uh, question is show 2 albums that are the second albums by their respective bands and happen to be your favorite albums by those bands. And the third question is show 2 albums that you disliked back in the day, but now you like them. And the fourth question is basically complain about 2 things that are annoying to people who collect physical music media. So I obviously want to show my support for his channel, so this is my entry into his contest. And of course, I had to make things difficult for myself, so I've restricted at least the 3 first questions to doom metal. So just to keep up with the theme, like Green Sabre, doom metal, and all that stuff. So 2 albums that shaped my taste in music. Now, in the grand scheme, those albums would be Somewhere in Time for sure, and Flick of the Switch. But now we're talking doom metal. So 2 albums, and these are the 2 albums that got me into doom metal. And they are so influential that because of them, there are certain styles of doom metal that I have a hard time appreciating just because they're not like the music on these 2 albums. Anyways, the first one is Solitude Aeternus Beyond the Crimson Horizon. um, Epic traditional doom metal. When I heard this first, I was into thrash metal and power metal and US power metal, traditional metal, hard rock, glam metal, more like up tempo or upbeat music. So when I heard this, I'd never heard anything like this. So slow, so dark, so oppressive, so atmospheric, so epic, darkly epic and multi-textured and multi-layered and just interesting. And the vocals, like uh, like high register, operatic vocals. I mean, this is a doom metal masterpiece. Completely mesmerizing. I got hooked immediately. Uh, wouldn't stop listening to it. I had a dub tape that I would listen to on my Walkman all the time. Fantastic. This got me into doom metal, along with an album that's also traditional doom metal, but very different. And that is this one here, Storm Warning by Count Raven. I hadn't discovered Black Sabbath. I knew about them, but I hadn't discovered them really by the time that I listened to this one and the Solitude Aeternus one. So this is also traditional doom metal. It's also slow and oppressive and melancholic and dark, but it's not epic in my opinion, because what they do in this album is that each song consists of not a whole lot of riffs, and they repeat the riffs over and over and over in the songs. And I think this is why some people find this a challenging listen. It's just dense. Um, but it has a kind of hypnotic effect, and the riffs are great, so I don't mind them being repeated. So I love this album because you got these awesome, dark, and melancholic riffs, and they're just repeated all the time. And I don't know why, I just loved that, and I still do. And I love the vocals too. They are very Aussie inspired, but they also sound very Swedish. And check out the album, and I think you'll know what I mean. So those were the two albums that actually got me into doom metal because those albums set such a high bar. I have a kind of a hard time getting into stoner doom because it's not like epic and it's not necessarily oppressive and melancholic. And I have a hard time getting into sludge doom as well for the same reasons. So there you go. Okay, the second question. Show two albums that are the second albums by the respective bands and happen to be your favorite albums by those bands. This is always very difficult to me because, with a few exceptions, I have a hard time ranking albums by bands. I have a hard time saying I like this album, but I like this one a little bit more. And I also have a hard time finding like one favorite album. In some cases, yeah, I do have like Somewhere in Time is my favorite Iron Maiden album. Um, Among the Living is my favorite Anthrax album, but very often I end up with like two favorite albums or four. I can't even find one. I just like all of it, or most of their output. So this might be a little bit of a cheat. Starting out with this one here, Cold Soul Embrace by Enchantment. Their second album in a discography consisting of two albums, and for the longest time of one album, because they put out their debut album back in the 90s, uh, Death Doom Metal album, which is great, has so many great songs on it, and it's just like the epitome of great 90s Death Doom. And then because of life and record label issues, they folded, but they had written a bunch of material. And then, a couple of years ago, they decided to put out this album with a lot of that material. So this is full of 90s material. Uh, the songs on here are epic, some of them, dark, doomy, brooding. And one thing I like is that they use a lot of layers of guitar harmonies built into the riffs. I'm a sucker for that. So this is great. Now, nowadays, they are the bald beauties of Blackpool. They're middle-aged men. They've been around, just as living people for many years. I'm sure they've experienced like losses and frustrations and grievances and just all the bad things that life throws at us in general. So I'd like to think that I can hear their life experience and the maturity on this album. Uh, and I really like that. I don't know if I'm just making stuff up here, but I think this is a more mature album, and it's an authentic 90s death doom metal album released in the 2020s, and it's just special in that sense. So, and I do love their debut album, but this one is just special because of that. And the next one is borderline, not doom metal, I think. Trouble Skull. And this is in close competition with Manic Frustration, which is more of a stoner metal album. I don't consider that a doom album at all, but I really like that album because it's the first album by Trouble I ever heard. This one here is great too. There's just something about it. It's more like a traditional heavy metal album with kind of like elements of inspiration from Black Sabbath. So you get those doom parts every now and then. And is this the best album by Trouble? I'm not even sure it is the best album. I think the debut and the follow-up albums are actually better, but there's just something special about this one too. And I can't even put my finger on it, but I really like it. Um, I like their other stuff too, and it's a very, very close call. Um, but there you go. So two albums I used to dislike, but I like them now. Now, as some of you know, I like my death metal. I really appreciate the different styles of harsh and growled vocals, except from pig squealing and stuff. I'm not into that. But if you were part of the crew that I would hang out with back in the day, you would know that I did not like death metal back then because of the vocals. I just couldn't stomach the harsh vocals. Eventually it clicked, and I was even in death metal bands and stuff. Uh, but originally, nope. And that had kind of like collateral damage that there were death metal adjacent genres I didn't like either, like death thrash and death doom. Now, like I said, eventually death metal clicked with me, and death thrash too, and other death metal adjacent genres. So I figured, hmm, I bet I like that death doom now. So I decided to pick this one up. My Dying Bride, Mr. Flower Withers. Yeah, I know there's not much to see here. I just have the disc itself. I do have the digipack. I just keep my digipacks. I store them somewhere else, otherwise I'll run out of space. This is what the cover art actually looks like. Pretty cool, pretty arty. Now, back in the day, I did not like this album because of the vocals. And yeah, it's many years ago now, I decided to, like I said, pick up a bunch of Death Doom stuff and listen to it. And yeah, sure enough, I loved it. I love the harsh vocals, and I love how arty farty and kind of pretentious it is. I like that. It's kind of progressive in a way. Um, the songs are very well put together, and you got lots of arty farty stuff going on too, and they are dark and oppressive and melancholic and all that good stuff. And like I said, very artistic. And it's also kind of rough around the edges. I really like the production. The production is rough around the edges, but I like the dry guitar tone. It kind of reminds me of dry, crumbled up parchment paper, probably because of the cover artwork. Um, but the performance is also a little bit rough around the edges. And in the fast parts, sometimes it sounds like the drummer has a hard time keeping up, but that just adds authenticity. So I love this album now. Back in the day, I did not like it. And the next one is a similar story, Anathema Serenades, Death Doom classic. And if you ask again, the crew I would hang out with back in the day, they would tell you he did not like this at all. And it's only recently I decided, hey, Anathema, that's another band I didn't like because of the vocals. Um, so I decided to pick this one up. This is a reissue, and Crestfallen, they were on sale anyhow. Picked them up, played them. Sure enough, loved them. It was just the vocals. And this one is also kind of arty farty in a good way, just like As the Flower Withers. So yeah, two albums, Death Doom albums. I didn't like back in the day. I like him now. And then last, two things that are annoying to people who collect physical music media. I could complain about the price gouging, both on the kind of the new releases market and the secondhand market, because I do think the prices are outrageous. Now, personally, I have this like tier system of price ranges that, I'm willing to pay for a non-rare record within this price range. Above that, forget it. I'm willing to pay for a kind of rare record within this price range. Above that, forget it. And a super rare within this price range. Above that, forget it, right? So, and also, I have a steady income and all that stuff, and I've been around for a while. But to younger people who don't have steady incomes yet, um, I mean, there's so many people I think who could get into record collecting and CD collecting as well. And they can't get in because they can't afford just buying their first record. I think that is a shame. But that's not what I'm gonna complain about. What I'm gonna complain about is other people who collect physical music media, at least in my first point here. And it's a special kind of person. Let's just call it the elitist collector who feels entitled to take ownership of your collection. As some of you know, my opinion is people collect physical music media the way they collect it, and it's up to them how they store their records, whether they keep them in the shrink wrap, whether they break them out and play them, whether they need multiple copies of the same record. whether they use outer sleeves, whether they keep the records in the jackets or behind the jackets. It's all up to them. Now, there is a group and the vinyl community at large. There's a bunch of these people in the vinyl community at large. I don't really interact with them that much because the metal part of the vinyl community seems much more tolerant in general, although there are some people there too. Um, a group of people who uh, tell you what to do with your collection. Like they scold you for not using a particular type of outer sleeve. They scold you for storing your records in a particular way. They tell you that this any record collector must own this copy of this record, and then they humiliate you and make fun of you if you don't have it. Um, and then you end up with a record that maybe you don't even like it, but you feel you have to have it in your collection because the self-appointed gurus tell you that, or you should not use this brand of record player, blah blah blah, all this stuff. So really, it's the self-appointed uh, record collecting gurus that they do annoy me now. They don't have any influence on me because I've been around for a while, but if you're younger and you're more impressionable, they can have a devastating effect on your uh, just experience of collecting physical music media. I mean, it's no fun if, yeah, this is my favorite album, and then there's a person who says that's a garbage version of it, and you should have bought this other album by this band instead. And then you go out and buy it, and maybe you don't even like it. Uh, so those guys can just fuck off, and they are annoying. Don't listen to them, no matter what they say. I mean, maybe listen to them, listen to other people, and figure out what makes the most sense to you. That's what I do. I've listened to a lot of different input. I try out some things, and I do what works for me. But the people who are self-appointed vinyl or physical music media collecting gurus and tell you you have to do this, you must own that record, you have to store your records like this, you have to use this system, blah blah blah. Don't take their word as any kind of authority. It's fine to take it into consideration. I do that myself, but they're not an authority, and they are they're just annoying in that sense. Don't basically listen to everyone, but don't take anyone's advice. You know what I mean? So those are annoying. Another thing that's annoying, which also kind of has to do with other people that collect physical music media, that's the FOMO. Now, um, or really how FOMO is exploited and the kind of, yeah, bad kind of effect it can have, looking at things largely. So fear of missing out. Um, a lot of collectors do have this. So if I don't know, an album is reissued in five different color variants, then some collectors feel like they have to pick up all five of them. Otherwise, they will miss out on something, and that's fine. You do you. You collect however you collect. What's annoying is that you know the business exploits that. The business knows there are collectors out there who feel they have to buy everything, otherwise they'll miss out on stuff. And then they put out lots of different versions of the same release. Maybe a box set version, maybe a so-called audiophile version on 180-gram vinyl. Although I can't hear the difference between that and a thinner record. Um, and people buy it because they're collectors. So I think it's kind of taking advantage of a vulnerable uh, community. Not really vulnerable. They have the money, and that's the other issue. One of the reasons why there's a lot of price gouging going on is that we are willing to pay high prices for stuff. Again, like I said, I have my tier system, but some people are willing to pay a lot of money to get all the color variants. And again, you do you, but it is a shame because it does drive up the prices. So FOMO in general is annoying. I have trained myself not to feel FOMO. And what I do, for example, when just say I go on to High Roller Records and I want to buy a record and they have like five different versions of it, I pick the cheapest one. And that's often the black vinyl one. Sometimes it might even be a picture disc. Sometimes it's colored vinyl. And I just pick the cheapest one. And also, I trained myself by filling my in online stores by filling my shopping carts with stuff and not pulling the trigger, and then experiencing somebody else buying it and it disappearing from the shopping cart, and I've survived so far and it doesn't bother me at all. So FOMO is annoying, especially the way that it's exploited and the kind of large scale effects it can have on driving up the prices, on also making record collecting stressful. Like if you have that constant fear of missing out on something, that's gotta be horrible. Um, so FOMO is annoying in many different ways. But anyways, two complaints, basically me complaining about fellow record collectors. That's actually pretty horrible. What can you do? So there you go. 200 subs, Green Sabre. Check out the channel. Congratulations. Thanks for watching.